And on a more personal level, when you live in a world of classified data, defense,
Mm,
space, how do you how do you switch off, or
mm.
do you ever?
No, you really don't. And so I have just retired from the Air Force after, again, about 29 years, just 2 months ago.
Mm.
And no, it becomes kind of who you are. And I would even define it as it, what's, it, it's the characteristic that embodies professionalism, right? And any industry has this. I don't know that a doctor who's good at their trade ever really shuts it off, right? They take a step away from it, maybe on a vacation, but even then, they're still reading medical journals. I
Mm.
love a case study is Tom Brady, right? A football quarterback that just recently retired. He measured every calorie, every nutrient that went into his body. Did he ever shut it off? Absolutely not. And
Mhm.
football wasn't even year round. So I would like to think that I was professional enough that no, I didn't shut it off because global security, national defense, and the societies that we're serving, it's important enough that I need to stay on monitoring the news, right? Reading things, certainly researching. And then what I discovered in the last 6 years of my career was being able to integrate with industry partners and academia really opened up the new possibilities for requirements that are needed for operations in the Department of Defense, but also that dual use technology that also supports and enables societies, cultures, and economies that isn't defense related.
It really does, for sure. And if you could go back and give your younger self some advice, let's say on day one of your military career, which certainly was a pivotal moment, yeah,
Sure.
what would you say now to your younger self back then?
That's a good question, Chris. If I could go back, so I joined the Air Force when I was 18 years old, back in 1996. And if I could sit down with myself for 15 minutes, I would challenge young me to to fearlessly say yes. I think that sometimes it's better to be lucky
Mm.
than good, and so I've had a number of opportunities that happened to drop into my lap. One, for instance, was I was the Department of Defense representative to NATO for artificial intelligence to help with the NATO AI strategy. That didn't come about because I pursued anything. It really was a tasker request that came out through the Pentagon, and I just happened to raise my hand first and said yes. I would say that is probably the one ingredient that's offered me success within my career. To go back to my young 18-year-old self, say do it fearlessly. It will take you places that are nonlinear in your career, and that's where it gets really exciting. And then if I could only add on to that with add in diverse perspectives. We all come from a certain culture, and a lot of times it's homogenous within, whether it's a socioeconomic scale, your education system, but seek out different perspectives, and it's really going to help shape you and take the bias out of a lot of the approaches that you have to your career, to leadership, to technology inclusion, to operations, and how you integrate with society as a whole, who you're serving, right? Yeah, and then the biggest takeaway I would say would be to meet people and organizations with where they're at. Don't try to boil the ocean is one fun way that we say in the innovation community, right? But don't try to change the culture. You can certainly impact and influence culture just by your skills and abilities that you bring to an organization or to a team. But trying to change everything, it's just futile, right? The world viewpoint for most whether it's a company or whether it's a small team, that's hard to change. So go in there, try to make positive impacts, but meet people where they are.
So, Brew, let's take a breath and let's make a full stop here and let all that sink in
Mhm.
to the listeners, because I think we've taken them far out into space, back to
Yes.
defense and all that stuff. But the way you explain it, specifically how specific technologies can come together and actually create, you know, maybe even much more opportunity than we have on Earth right now. Who
Mhm.
knows? But also the risks associated with it in terms of cybersecurity, but also weaponizing space, is
Absolutely.
probably something we all need to think about. It's very inspirational to hear, firsthand from you. But before this conversation ends,
Mhm.
we do have a tradition on this podcast where my previous guest leaves a question for my next guest without knowing who my next guest is and also not knowing what we are going to talk about. So there is a question for
Mhm.
you. And the question that has been left for you is, if you could go back in time with the information and knowledge you have today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
Mhm. Well, I probably would have invested in Bitcoin way early on. That would have been a lot of fun, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm,
no, in all seriousness, I probably worked too many hours, and that
mhm,
came at a personal sacrifice, right? Been married for 25 years, and I'm lucky she stuck by me. But through a lot of long nights and working through weekends. So if I could go back and change one thing, I would still challenge myself to work hard, but change the amount of time that I'm working on it. Actually try to decouple from the tasks and understand that not everything is a critical task that needs to be accomplished. So yeah, I would say the personal growth is I became a workaholic in my adult
mhm.
years, and that came at some sacrifice.
But was it worth it?
Um, no, no, it wasn't, Chris. And here's why I say that. I retired 2 months ago from the Air Force. I'll challenge you by the end of 2025 to find a document that has my name on it.
Mhm,
Now, I've impacted people and programs and projects along the way, and they were meaningful. But I have 3 daughters, got a wonderful wife, and ultimately, that's the legacy that I leave behind. I think I can create an even greater impact by investing in my 3 daughters and
mhm,
having them go do great things in the world. Now my experience and what I educate them on can be multiplied. And while I think I do that to some extent, I spent a lot of years away from them. Was it worth it? No, I had a great time. I had great impacts. But ultimately, as I reflect back on a long 30-year career, I could have done better on the home front.
So of course, I don't have any insight in, what you exactly did in your nearly 3 decades long career in the industry, in the military. But maybe you're underestimating the impact you had just by a tiny bit. I'm not quite sure, but
Thank you.
I fully agree. The impact you have on the people around you, the family, is probably the most rewarding thing at the end of the
Mhm.
day you can have. So that's a great answer. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks. Yeah, just trying to be a little transparent.